Welcome to the We Watch This Movie podcast, where we sit down for a cup of coffee, as this is our second ever Minisode. And today, joining us, longtime friend, returning guest, Nick's Flicks Fix. How you doing?
Guys, I'm fantastic at the moment. Thank you for having me back.
Took the words right out of our mouths. And
Took the words out of your mouth.
our favourite co-host, you might call him an aficionado of all things Christopher Nolan, Dan Allen Movies. How are you faring in the midst of stage 4 lockdown here in Melbourne, Victoria?
I want to bring it up, but Nick's pissed me off because he just said he's going to watch Tenet this Thursday. I'm absolutely pissed off.
We're less than a minute into this minisode. The clock's ticking, time's running out, and you just can't go without mentioning Tenet, can you?
He just said Thursday. That is what? 4 nights away. He'll be sitting in the theatre, popcorn in hand, choc top in hand, drink in hand. He's only got 2 hands, one of them on the side. Okay, anyway.
Unless he's an octopus, who really knows? Anything's possible in this show.
He's looking at the screen, and the words 5 letters come up. T-E-N-E-T.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I mean, you can't get any better than that, Nick. I'm very jealous.
I'm very, very excited to watch it, but at the same time, I'm in that mindset as well. As like, I feel bad for so many people who don't get to watch it. Like I have refrained from telling certain people, but it came up very quickly before we recorded that we started chatting about it. So, but I'm keen to see it Thursday. I get to see it like a few days early. So I don't know how much I get to talk about it post the movie, but I'm very excited.
Nick, don't feel bad. Feel rotten that you're rubbing this in our face and putting salt in the wounds. And listeners, you might be listening to this after this landmark tentpole universe-changing movie releases. But today, we're not here to talk about Tenet. We're here to talk about another film. What is it, Dan?
Unhinged, and no, we're not talking about Nicolas Cage's relationships. We're talking about the Russell Crowe flick that was it the first movie back in theaters? Nick, you saw this in theaters, yeah?
This was like the first 2020 post-COVID release. So this was like the newest movie for 2020 to come out in cinemas here.
Unhinged, Russell Crowe. He's one of my favorites. So I'm interested to hear thoughts. Obviously, this is a weird mini-so because me and Jackson haven't seen the film due to Melbourne being in lockdown. But we're going to pump Nick with a few questions and he's going to give us his thoughts. So why don't you kick us off, Nick? What did you think of the film, Unhinged?
Welcome to the hot seat.
Welcome to the hot seat. Indeed, bombard me with the questions. Dear Lord. Well,
sorry to steal your thunder here, Nick, but Dan, I've noticed something. You said you haven't seen it. I'm looking here on IMDb. Didn't you direct this movie?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Hold on.
Directed by Dan Allen.
Just have a look here. Unhinged, not 2020, 2017. So this must be a bit of a delayed release. But you directed this.
Wrong movie.
Why did you shelve it for so long? Why didn't you want people to see it?
Unhinged 2017. 4 American best friends decide to take the back road traveling to a wedding in England. God, that sounds so good, man.
God, how did one production survive with such massive egos on set? Not only do we have Dan Allen, but Russell Crowe too.
And we look so similar too. Two brooding male, icons.
We're just throwing phones at each other the whole time? Is that the sort of...
Both commanding attention on set. There was a few fights there, but I managed to...
I hope you gave him hell for Les Mis.
Oh, come on, mate. He's got a beautiful singing voice. I'm sorry. That was the first thing I told him.
What's your impersonation?
Russell Crowe.
Anyway, I'm so sorry to our lovely guest, Nick Flicks. He'll never be back after this. It might have happened the first time around with prisoners, and he's been put through it again.
We didn't even do a synopsis.
Why do we need it? It's a mini-sode. All the rules segments, it's all out the window.
I will say this. For a synopsis on IMDb, it's 1 sentence. One very reasonably short sentence. So
have you got it there?
Yeah.
I've got it here, yeah. So, after a confrontation with an unstable man at an intersection, a woman becomes a target of his rage.
Oh my God.
So it was a documentary crew just filming Russell Crowe Just day to day.
It only took 2 days to shoot it.
Must have been.
It is weird that it says documentary under the genre there. So hey, good old Rusty.
Gents, I do actually have a lengthier synopsis. So for our listeners out there who might be interested, I'm about to tell you all about a movie that I haven't seen. So here goes. Rachel is running late getting to work when she crosses path with a stranger at a traffic light. Soon, Rachel finds herself and everyone she loves the target of a man who feels invisible and is looking to make one last mark upon the world by teaching her a series of deadly lessons. What follows is a dangerous game of cat and mouse that proves you never know who you're driving next to.
Tell
Nick,
us a bit about it.
Who are you driving next to?
Not near Russell Crowe after watching this movie, I'll tell you that much. I will not be driving next to him. I really enjoyed this movie because of how unapologetically insane it is. It's not necessarily a good movie. It's very basic premise. It doesn't really give you amazing character arcs. It takes a little while to get going. But once you get into the meat of this movie, and you can just sit back and once you find out how absurd it really is, it's a very schlocky, entertaining B-grade thriller.
That's what I thought as soon as I saw the trailer. And that's a film I want to watch. Maybe not at the theaters. Yeah. This is probably a bit better for at home. But is he unhinged?
Oh boy, he is unhinged. So the opening of the film is a slight spoiler for the opening scene. He's sitting in the pouring rain in his car. He's downing a bottle of whiskey. He walks to the front door of a house, beats it in, kicks it in with a hammer, and kills who we find out is his ex-wife and her lover. That's the opening scene of the movie. He just bashes 2 people with a hammer.
Whoa.
And then you get unhinged, and you're like, makes sense. Makes complete sense. Yeah, it's a heavy. It starts out pretty heavy.
Well, I bet you'd be warned off if you thought you might have walked into the wrong movie here. At least you're setting the tone pretty well for what's to come.
Super early, yeah.
So it sounds like exactly what the premise is and what we saw in the trailer. So Dan's 100% correct there. Nick, what's something you can liken this to? Because when I first heard this premise and saw the trailer, I was thinking, Michael Douglas in Falling Down, just a guy kind of on the brink. How's he going to snap? What's going to happen? Yep. So what's it a bit similar to?
That was the first thing I thought of walking out to, was Falling Down. It's Falling Down, but from the viewpoint of one of the victims in Falling Down. So the movie's more so about Karen Pistorius' character. She just happens to have the run-in with Russell Crowe. So yeah, it's almost taken Falling Down and putting it from the perspective of a victim. So, but that is probably the closest parallel you can make.
Is there any F-bombs?
Yes, there is. Yeah, this is definitely. I think it's rated. Yeah, Russell's just unloading them. Really? This is MA here, I believe, and it earns its MA rating. Yeah,
yes,
for
Russell,
sure.
Yes,
absolutely.
I love Russell. I can't get enough of him. Seriously,
he is definitely. He suits the I believe he put on weight for this one. I know he's a big burly dude, but he is big in this movie. It's grossly big. And it really adds to that sort of burly, unsettling vibe that he's giving off.
Well, he's built like a rugby player, or for someone like yourself living up in Queensland, we'd probably say a footy player.
Footy player, yeah.
Well, he owns the Rabbitohs, you know that, right?
Is he still?
Yeah. Still owns the Rabbits.
He does love his rugby. Is he bigger in this than he is in the? Was it the Nice Guys I'm thinking of?
Oh, but yeah, bigger in this. Yeah, ooh. Bigger waistline, bigger shoulders. His beard sort of masks any form of neck. He's just neck and shoulders. So burly bloke in this.
Neck and shoulders. That should be a beard balm brand. Has anyone claimed that trademark yet?
What else can you
write it down quick?
What else can you tell us, Nick, without going into spoilers?
This movie, like I said, it's unapologetically violent. It understands very quickly the sort of, or the film makes you understand very quickly what it's going for.
Yep.
The action is out of control. The way that people die in this movie is very violent and visceral, but to a point where it's very absurd. So the movie understands it's a B grade thriller. It's not trying to be some form of incredibly haunting movie about a man who's trying to just kill people. You're ultimately watching a movie that is larger and more ridiculous than real life.
To a comical point?
Yes. So when I saw it with a friend of mine. It was us two and one other person in the cinema. So we sat sort of back corner.
Oh, thank
and
God
we
cinemas
were,
are open.
There was 3 people in the. It was the 10 o'clock session on a Thursday morning. Like it was pensioner hour, and no one wanted to come out to see Rusty that day. So we were up in the back corner watching it, and we were having a blast. Anytime something insanely violent happened, we were laughing. We were like whispering to each other about crazy things we thought were going to happen next. So I feel like, Dan, you're right. It's one of those movies that if you can watch it at home and you get some friends over, that's the sort of movie it's going for. It's more of an experience of absurdity.
Would you have seen this if it wasn't your first theatrical experience? Or back after COVID, I should say. Would you still have watched it?
I think so. I think the trailer. This is my sort of vibe. I'm a fan of movies that are ridiculous. I like having that experience there. So I probably would have seen it, but I don't think it's performed as well, and that doesn't shock me because another element you could probably argue is that there are themes in this movie that would be hard for people to deal with. This is ultimately, it's an unhinged man. It's a man who's dealing with things like his wife has cheated on him and now he's going on a murderous rampage. These are obviously things that can potentially happen. So there's a fine line it does draw in the sense of it could be incredibly tough, or in other cases, people probably may not enjoy it in the same way I did. They wouldn't maybe see it for the schlocky sort of film it's trying to be. So I don't think it's a very, it's divisive, very divisive sort of movie, especially with the level of violence that it goes for in this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've had a look here at some of the box office numbers that have come in, as it has seen a worldwide release, and so far, in a reported budget of 33 million, at least production. Who knows what happened to the marketing, given that this was originally slated in the midst of COVID and then pushed back again. It's seen so far, I think, just under 4 million worldwide. We're getting a US release. I think it's Thursday, or maybe, I think it is Thursday, the 21st of August, so coming up a week after we record this. Do you see this bringing back that budget, even if cinemas were open pre-COVID?
I don't think so. To me, when you said $33 million, that sort of shocked me a little bit. I sort of, they invested a little bit of money into this, but this is not a movie that is anything more exciting than other things that could be coming out. It's what, I guess you could call counter programming. It's the one you see when the actual movie you don't want to see is available. So, and I don't know how Russell Crowe is box office draw. Obviously he's fantastic in The Nice Guys, right? We were talking about that, but
he's not.
I don't know how that performed
in 2020. I love the guy. He's just not a box office draw these days, unfortunately.
And he's the biggest name in the movie. There are other people who pop up, but he is the sole draw for this film. So I don't see it really making its budget back. But, anything is possible in 2020 at the moment.
Very true, mate. It'd take a bit of money to get Rusty off the couch as well. So I guess that's where the money goes.
Well, can you believe that Russell Crowe and Brad Pitt are the same age?
No.
Yes.
No.
Dead set. So that's the difference between, people aging well and,
Wow.
So
can you imagine the version of Once Upon a Time where it's Russell Crowe fixing that TV antenna?
That's what I mean.
Shirt
comes up. It just goes to show that you can still have the drawing power at an older age, So I don't know what happened to Russell over the last 10 years or so. I think he's just more invested in that Rabbitohs team. What was the audience reception, Jackson?
Jackson's ratings.
IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, audience score, and Letterboxd.
Well, so far, like I mentioned earlier, we haven't had this in wide release just yet in the US and Canada, so considered North America when looking at box office stats and critic stats, so it's a bit hard to call, but so far, IMDb has this one pegged at 6.2 out of 10 from just shy of 2.3 I should say over 2,500 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes score, it's coming in dead middle. So 55% from 40 critic reviews and an average critical rating of 5.52 out of 10. Can't speak for the audience score. So there's no review bombing. There's a big embargo on audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes until it gets its North American release. So we'll know in about a week or so. Metacritic, 46 from 11 critical reviews. And finally, Letterboxd, 2.7 out of 5. It's been rated by over 2.1 thousand users and has less than 300 likes. So pretty middle of the road. I think a lot of the consensus mirrors what you've said, Nick, in that, I should say mirrors, parallels maybe, that it's an interesting premise. The execution isn't fantastic, and it's not going to be the movie for everybody. But the star of the show, Russell Crowe, he brings the goods.
He does indeed. I mean, that was the biggest part of the film that I enjoyed, is that Russell is just letting all inhibitions go, and he is absolutely 100%. He's unhinged. There's no other way to put it. He just really takes on the character, and it's in a sense that it looks like he was having fun doing it. He was able to play this completely insane person and have an absolute blast. So, yeah, a little bit too much. No, he draws it in when he needs to.
It sounds a bit like one of those crazed John Travolta performances we've been seeing for the last 20 years in something like The Fanatic, or I can even think to him playing Castor Troy and Sean Archer in Face Off. Imagine the kind of movie we'd get if it was Mr. Travolta.
That's the thing. If it was Travolta, this is a completely different reception.
Instant 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It is, isn't it? It's funny. If I was behind the marketing of this film, Unhinged, I reckon I would have put this out around Halloween and gone for that vibe, that crowd. I don't know how they're going to compete against Tenet, in September in theaters. Maybe they'll get some sort of audience. I just don't think it's going to do that well in America, unfortunately. Even if COVID wasn't around.
It's definitely got that vibe where you kind of want to watch something that is. It's a thriller. Like, don't get me wrong, this movie is exciting. Once it takes about 25-30 minutes to get like properly going. But once it gets going, it just doesn't stop all the way until the end. And it's just got that vibe of a thriller that is easy to digest. Like, there is no convoluted plot. There is an epic amount of gore and violence, and it's what you want around that Halloween time. Like, I can understand why they would release it now. You want a 2020 movie to come out once people are able to go back to the cinemas. But I feel like this would have been perfect, because I think Candyman's now coming out around October for us here. If you have Candyman and Unhinged, that's your Halloween double feature at the cinema for sure.
Yeah, even on Netflix, I reckon this would have done great numbers at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like a streaming service movie at times, and that's just the quality it has going for it. It's not trying to be anything else but.
Cool. So, Nick, what was your final rating for Unhinged?
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Oh, quite high after what we've said.
After what we said, justifiably, because I feel like it's a 5 or a 6 quality-wise. But the amount of fun I had watching it was probably at like an 8 level. So a 7 for me is like, it's not good enough to be great. It's not bad enough to be bad. Yep. It's super enjoyable.
There you go. 7 out of 10, Jackson. What do you think you're going to rate this thing when you finally get your eyes on it?
When I'm finally unhinged? Look, I don't know here, Nick. Yeah. I'm not one to go out there and throw numbers at movies I haven't seen, unlike my other We Watch This Movie podcast co-host here. However, I will say it's probably not at the top of the pile of what I'm going to be catching in the cinemas whenever we get back in there. I might be watching another movie you might have heard of, beginning with T.
Ends with T as well, I'm guessing. Hey, that's the one we're talking about. The
New Mutants.
And here I am trying to think of something else. Yeah, there we go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
The New Mutants.
Thanks for joining us, Nick. It's been an absolute pleasure. Where can our listeners find you?
You can jump on Instagram at Nick's Flicks Fix. That's where I do my 60-second movie reviews. So similar to a minisode like this, I just blurt out all my thoughts as quick as I can in an unhinged way almost. And Letterboxd, I'm updating more regularly now, which is Nick's Flicks Fix as well.
And Nick, aren't you hosting your own podcast at the moment? I'm sure our listeners would be intrigued. It's your second ever time showing up here, so why not plug something else?
Well, yes, I've just recently launched the Early Knockoff podcast. So every Friday afternoon, I finish work, I crack open a beer, and I just start recording. And I occasionally have people on to talk to. It's more of a just the way I treat it is if you have finished work, you've gone down to the pub with your mates. What are some of the things you would talk about? So I just cover a whole wide variety of things. We don't know what those pub things
are anymore. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's never happening again here.
I get it. It's not the same. PUBG. Sorry, yeah, we get on, we play PUBG at home. In saying this, I went out last night and it is not the same. You're not allowed to get up and dance. You have to be sitting at all times unless you're buying a drink.
Yeah.
It's just not the same. Like they may as well be closed.
God, Brisbane nightlife was shit house before. It must be even worse now.
It's so bad. You're not wrong. You're not wrong in the slightest.
Oh no.
Alrighty, so Nick's Flicks Fix on Instagram, Letterboxd, and check out the Early Knockoff. Nick, thank you so much. We're so grateful to have you back to talk about Unhinged. And Dan, is that it? Our second ever minisode in the can.
In the can, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. We watch this. Dan Allen Movies, Marshall on Film _. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you. Minisode 3.
Thanks for listening.